Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Dennis Schuler. I'm the moderator of Wendepunkt, Inflection Points for Senior Leaders. And I'm going to be joined this morning, early in his day over in Europe, by Lars Reger. Lars is the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for NXP Semiconductors Company. They're based in Eindhoven with major operations in Hamburg and in Austin, Texas. I met Lars several years ago when I was doing a transition assignment with NXP when I was in the middle of buying a company called Freescale, which gave them entry or solidified their position, I should say, into automotive chip technology. So when you think about semiconductors, and I didn't know much about them when I started working in the company, other than I knew you had to wear a bunny suit inside the wafer making facilities that lead to semiconductors. Semiconductor technology permeates every aspect of our life. I just didn't know it, and like you probably don't either, but if you're in a car and it's self-drive and you use the parking assist, chances are you're going to be having a semiconductor chip manufactured by NXP. The radar surround sound in your car, the acoustic sound, moving from economy to sport mode is all done by semiconductor technology. If you have a security in your system or a curtain or lighting automatic control, or anything that's related to smart home, NXP is the center of that. And then finally, with your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, the chip technology in that is powered in large part by NXP. So a pretty impactful company in our daily life. And I wanted to bring that alive by virtue of having Lars talk to us about what he does and, just as importantly, how he does it and what attracted him to the technology in the field to begin with. So by way of introduction, Lars has joined as a head of automotive strategy in 2008 at NXP, and then he had previously worked at Siemens Semiconductor, which is a large, well-known company noted for developing great electrical engineers and engineering in total. In 2012, Lars was appointed CTO of Automotive at NXP, and that's really where the nexus of the business is. That's their big business. They are a leader in the chip technology that supports automotive. And in 2018, I'm really happy to report he was appointed NXP's Chief Technology Officer over all their business in a recognition of the impact that Lars has had in the company. It was very nice to see. He's a member of the board for the Committee of Digital Economy, Telecommunications, and Media in the German Industry Association. He's a director of the ITS World Congress, and he's a member of the Forbes Technology Council. You'll find that this guy has energy to burn. He stays active through his passion for sports and interests he shares with his wife and 3 kids. Outside of working, he can often be found in the water, either sailing, windsurfing, jet skiing, or swimming. And on land, I can attest to this, he enjoys running. And I can attest to this, snow skiing. Now, one of the things I wanted to do, because I didn't know that much about semiconductors when I started working with NXP, and I didn't understand fully what impact it had on our lives until I started working with them and I visited some of the factories, and I started to see some of the applications. What I'm going to try to do is take a 5 to 7 minute clip of 2020's Consumer Electronics Show, where Lars features the 3 main business areas and how semiconductor technology and the chips that NXP produces is transforming the lives we live. I think that'll give you a better appreciation for what he does and what's some of the transformation that we should expect in both automotive, inside your home, and actually with your phone in the future. We thought about 2021, which was a virtual event, but I thought the 2020 is a better depiction of both what NXP does and also the energy that Lars brings to the leadership role as Chief Technology Officer. So enjoy the little clip, and then we'll segue to Lars and enjoy a robust discussion with one of the world's best leaders in technology, one of the greatest managers I've been around, and a just good all-round person.
Hello everyone, I'm Lars Reger, I'm the CTO of NXP Semiconductors, and I'm at our booth here in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show 2020. And what I would like to do today is to show you what we have lined up here for our guests with the theme, a world that anticipates and automates. We are the company that can enable most of the smart connected devices that you will see in the next 5 to 10 years out there in the market. And how we're going to do this is what I'm going to show you briefly here in a walkthrough over the booth. So if you look into my jacket, here what I'm wearing in my jacket pocket is an ultra-wideband tracker. And ultra-wideband is one of our newest, hottest technologies for very smart and accurate positioning. So you can do asset tracking, my jacket can be tracked, and a lot of our demos are reacting to this beacon in my jacket. For example, this globe here behind me that is showing what NXP can do to the smarter world. It will be a globe that is traveling also our sites throughout the year. And if I move closer to this globe, you will see these bluish cubes changing color. Just as I'm walking over here, you will see suddenly the cubes are lighting up in a red way. This is of course what you can also see in your house with your infrastructure, with your car reacting to you approaching, opening up the doors, switching on the light and so on. We have our booth, if you're looking this way, lined up in a way. We have 3 iconic demos over here covering our main verticals. So automotive in the middle, industrial and smart home, mobile and IoT to my right side. So follow me quickly on, and then after this discussion of the eye-catcher demos, I will show you all the technical detailed demos in the second section of this area here. So we have here a transparent car where you can see basically all leading edge automotive technology that we have lined up. So to the front here, if you look with me to the front of the car, what you can see is our leading radar solutions, front radar, antenna in package, very tiny radar. And what you see here on the screen is the active radar sensing signals that you can see when I start moving here. So you see the Doppler signals of the radar. Then if you follow me further on, what you can see here is the application processing that we use in a lot of car activities. So the electronic instrument cluster, for example, you will see a blue box for autonomous driving and ADAS. You will see the data pumping and data switching devices here, our Ethernet switches, for example. You will see secure elements in the vehicle. Here, center stage, you will see our battery management systems. Really, really hot, highly precise, highly accurate and highly functional safe electronics that is making sure that your batteries are never overcharged and optimally managed. We have the general purpose controllers, of course, for all body electronics and autonomy functions. And to the rear side of the car here, you see V2X electronics, where we are very successful with Volkswagen and GM in the market already since a couple of years. You have the green box for powertrain management. And of course the surround view and surround detection capabilities with radar and vision. Plus what you see here, this big PCB down here in the car is our most advanced, most intelligent amplifier system for infotainment. So this big unit here is driving premium sound. For example, you can see it here in a demo with our partner Harman. Harman is using for the top-notch audio systems, our amplifiers in the best surround sound systems in vehicles worldwide. So looking with me over there to the industrial segment, what you can see here now is you'll see basically all the product portfolio that we have as NXP to build these type of industrial robots. Everything that you need in precision analog electronics, everything that you need in powertrain, so motion parts for the power electronics, everything that you need in sensor electronics, and last but not least, but very, very important, the secure connections to the cloud as well. So in other words, what we are using is we are using the chips of the German passport, give them an I2C interface so that robots can connect to these chips and let these robots run around with their own little passport. So this robot is connecting to the cloud in the same way like Lars is at the United Airlines gate connecting to the gate with my passport. This robot is talking to the cloud in this safe and secure way as well. So having this, of course, similar electronics are needed for the smart home as well. And if you just follow me over there to the smart home demonstrator. Excuse me for a second. So what you can see here also on the smart home demonstrator basically is all the ingredients that you need to manage the home of the future. So it is reliable and secure privacy in your house. It is personalized, seamless experience. You don't want to have barriers in your house. You want to have your doors opening up like Sesame open up, of course, via the ultra-wideband beacons that I have in my pocket. And of course, what you want to have in your house is you want to have your house as environmental friendly as possible. So you want to have as green, carbon neutral electronics as possible. So energy saving is of course of the essence.
Lars Reger, hey, thanks for making time for today. This is Wendepunkt, inflection points for senior leaders. I'm joined today by Lars Reger. He's the Chief Technology Officer for NXP Semiconductor. And we're going to take a trip through technology, life, civilization as we know it, life as we might visualize it in the future. And Lars is at the epicenter of a lot of cool, nifty technology that will affect your automobiles, how you interact with technology, Internet of Things, how your phone works. So this is one of the smartest people I've had the pleasure to work with in Lars, and I really do appreciate you making time in your very, very busy schedule, Lars.
And it's big thanks, and yeah, looking very much forward to the discussion.
So I was wondering maybe where we could start is because people probably aren't that familiar with NXP as a business. Could you just give an overview, a simple overview of the organization and the businesses that you run, and then we'll jump a little bit more deeply into your role as CTO.
Yeah, appreciate. So NXP was until 2006 known as Philips Semiconductors. So that was the semiconductor branch of the Philips big corporation. And like a lot of semiconductor daughters of big companies, Philips also decided to spin out its semiconductor branch, and yeah, we became NXP. At the same time, Motorola said goodbye to its semiconductor segment, which became Freescale. And even in the later years, so this ex-Philips Semiconductors married the ex-Motorola Semiconductors. So in 2015, NXP and Freescale merged into the new NXP as we know it as of today. The company itself is a pretty interesting company because we are providing almost all silicon for, as I would call it, smart connected devices. And that is from battery-free devices, so your contactless banking card, your passports, the vast majority of biometric chips in passports is coming from NXP, but your smartwatches, your smart speakers, your smart industrial robots, up to the majority of chips in cars, that all comes from NXP. So in other words, whether it's a rolling, a standing or a moving smart connected robot, NXP has almost the complete silicon to build these devices. Yeah, and that makes us pretty interesting system-wise,
Yeah,
of course.
Indeed, and I want to kind of double click all through that as we go through this morning, Lars, because the things you're working on, and I get just a smattering of a few years when I was working with your company, but the things you're working on, a lot of people at the executive can lay claim that they're changing and shaping lives. Maybe, but you are in terms of how we drive, how we interact with technology. It's just amazing. So where I wanted to go with you first, if I could, is yeah, I'm always inspired by people that do the work that you do. In your early life, when you drift back, what were the things that fueled your passion as a young guy that actually got you into engineering? And then ultimately,
it's also the
yeah.
That's an interesting one. No, so when I was a young boy, I wanted to do something that was very close to forefront technology. So I was dreaming of becoming an astronaut. I even did heavy sports training workouts to be fit as an astronaut or as a diver, deep sea diver. I mean, all of these type of things. So I never wanted to be an airplane pilot or locomotion driver or whatsoever, but diver and astronaut, that were the interesting topics. And yeah, dreaming of these futuristic capabilities of technology. I mean, that was pretty early on, one of the the key topics. Yeah, I started at an age of 8 to construct my own, on paper, to construct my own submarines and these type of things. Fortunately, I never built one. might have been disastrous, but that had been the big ideas. And later, then after my Abitur, so when I finished my high school, the idea was I wanted to build medical equipment. So I started physics studies, but I also started medical education. I stopped that later because it simply timing-wise did not match. So physics was done way earlier. I would have to do a lot of internships later, but I tried to build my own ECG systems, very basic early on. Did a lot of tomograph work, so reconstructed my own skull after being six hours in a magnetic resonance tomograph as a probation animal. Yeah. So these type of things, that was always test what's possible in a playful manner, and that was and is what's driving me.
So you didn't take the leap and take your submarine plans out into the harbor of Hamburg then, right? So you're still sitting here today breathing.
No, indeed. so fortunately, no damages. But of course, here and there, of course, you have learning from positive things, and also much better from the ones that did not work.
Yeah, good for you. That's fun. When you got it, when you're now, as you're roll forward, now you're the CTO of a major company that's affecting the everyday lives of consumers. Most consumers won't know that, but they experience your technology in both very personal and broad ways. When you think about the role of CTO, Lars, how do you think that's changing in most companies? Because my impression working with you is that you were very different than the average CTO I've seen, that you were fully integrated in the business. I mean, you understood the business cold, and that the application of your technology and the link between what you do and the business drivers was very, very tight. I've worked with CTOs that are real technology junkies, but they really don't ever connect it to the engine of growth for companies, and therefore the role gets marginalized. You've actually struck it a quite different way, where it's highly integrated to the company and its success. How did you do that? And then how do you see it evolving and changing going forward?
Yeah, that's maybe the big recipe to change in these companies. I mean, of course, I could try to dive very deep in very specific or semiconductor technologies, and then know exactly about the gate oxide of every transistor, so to say. But the idea, of course, behind my role was, let's see how we can change the world. What can we bring to the world, and how do I also explain this to our key stakeholders? So it started from there. Thinking of key stakeholders, who are they? I classify them in 4 groups. Our customers, because they bring us revenue. Our analysts, because they bring us valuation. The politicians and political ecosystem, because either then they accelerate or block me with their legislation. And then it's my mom and my dad, because if they are afraid of what I'm doing, they will never buy my products. If they love them, they will immediately spend their money. And of course, 5th stakeholder group is our internal employees, but that is anyhow clear, right? And for these 4 top stakeholder groups, if you can get them as a technical leader into following you, so you as a technical leader convince them that what you are doing is great, then you have suddenly a big technical followership community. And this technical leadership, technical followership setup, that is maybe what drives my CTO role. And of course, I need to have our technical community internally following me, but ideally I have also 9,000 engineers that are 9,000 multipliers to the outside world, and tell the world what NXP can do in the change. And that nicely fits with the current NXP portfolio to the outside world, because what you know is we are coming over the last 10 years out of a world that that is the on-demand world. You press on your mobile phone and say, I want to have a cab now, or I want to have a pizza, or I want to order something online. Here and now, you press the button. The next decade will for sure be the world that anticipates and automates. So in other words, your digital assistants, and there will be 50 to 100 billion of those by the end of this decade, around you, these digital assistants are taking over responsibilities from you, and they try to anticipate what you want to do next. I'm coming home, switch on my heating of the house. I'm having an appointment with friends over the weekend, dear fridge, order some beverages, and so on. So these type of things are having a super heavy impact to the end customers and to the society. And anticipating that and trying to fold it back into what is realistic, what is overhyped, and what is just solid in terms of technology. That is maybe the role of, how I try to interpret the role of a CTO and how I think modern CTOs should act.
Yeah, that sounds right on. Let me ask you a corollary question of that. I've been around CTOs that they liken the role as playing checkers, and others liken it as they're playing chess. And what I mean by chess is they see the whole board, and
Right.
board meaning consumers, customers, society in general. To your point, political bodies that may get in the way or not. Some CTOs take the position, I'll develop the technology and the business will catch up to it. Others will come at it from, which I think is where you come from, is I got to understand what the consumer need is and then develop the technology that satisfies that. Could you expound on that a little bit, Lars?
Yeah, so very honestly, I mean, if you don't understand how you can remove barriers for the people, or how I can remove obstacles that are normally in your daily way, how at all can I be successful with a company? So in other words, if I solve your problems, you give me your money, I get revenue, and you get a problem solved. That is how it works in the economy since invention of the wheel, right? That is, nothing new. This is a market economics. Now, if I understand what is the next problem that I should solve for you, and if I can translate this back and connect it to, hey, this is what my technology today can do, and this is what Dennis's problems are today and in future, yeah, then I very clearly have a pretty solid roadmap, whether it's realistic or not, but at least I can sketch it and say, if I were able to walk this way here, I would be successful in the market because I always solve meaningful problems for society. And this barrier removal, this is what I was describing prior, right? You come out of your building, you press a button on your phone, your transportation comes. Or even better, next level is the door opens seamlessly via ultra-wideband to nail it to our technologies, seamlessly only for you, the others cannot move. And while you are leaving, the connection to your smartphone and to your schedule already says, Lars now needs a cab, please bring one. And I don't need to do anything anymore. My house is climatized before I know that I'm arriving, and so on and so on. So this is what I mean when I talk about barrier removal. Seeing this bigger picture, making life for you more hassle-free. For that, I need to be able to put myself into your shoes. And that is also part of a transformational thing. When I talk to a journalist about AI and machine learning, normally the first question is, when is your car more intelligent than you are? When has it more emotions? And when are your kids driving to the kindergarten without you? And this is a market that is still 10 years at least out, or much further. But today we are already earning billions of dollars as an industry in AI and machine learning. But this is very, very different systems. This is better detection systems. So in other words, I can give you an X-ray picture or to an AI machine learning system, and that can do cancer screening and help the radiologist where to look. Your front door camera can detect whether there's a tree moving in the wind, or whether there's a person standing, or whether there's a person in a black hoodie standing, where you better should get an alarm onto your mobile phone, but please don't send me 600 pictures of a moving tree. Mm-hmm. So better detection systems is where reality is as of today. Systems that are more intelligent than humans, this is the far out future. And my job also is trying to understand this, mm-hmm. trying to become realistic, demystify it, and explain also to our customers and our suppliers what I need to have the next great innovation in the market that helps the end customers. So this demystification, storytelling, and playing with the outside world, that is, I think, one of the key topics where I would clearly say I'm on that side, trying to get the full picture. But I'm a good chess player, question mark. But at least having enough imagination to play with these type of thoughts.
Yeah, and I want to get in later on in terms of demystifying a lot of how technology impacts and what it might look like in the future. I'd love for you to tell me a few examples. But before we go there, just to take the consumer a little bit further, how do you visualize? So I've always been fascinated by guys like you about being able to visualize the future, because most people can't articulate. You know, like very few, including myself, could articulate or understand that you could have a smart car that would show up. I still get amazed when my BMW out there in the garage where I can start it from my key fob. I mean, some basic stuff like that, right? But you've leapt ahead 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I'm just curious how you do that.
Well, honestly, as a kid, you start dreaming, and I mean, it's the same technology. Just think of what would be the next coolest thing that you would like to have. So I mean, just to extend a bit on that joke, as kids, we always were dreaming of superpowers in our superheroes. Mm-hmm. Some of these superheroes have X-ray vision. Look at Superman, and they know exactly telepathic capabilities. Look at Yoda. What's outside of your line of sight? How do I translate this to the car of the future? My car of the future can look much better than Lars, the driver, in rain, in fog, and in snow, because my car has X-ray vision. We call it radar. My car knows that there is an ambulance coming around the next building into the crossroads, because my car has car-to-car communication. So I know it outside of the line of sight. And if we start playing with that and saying, okay, what would be the next great function that these devices would need to get a bit closer to the superpowers? What else can I do to give Lars, the driver, better capabilities and better senses? I mean, there is so many different concepts where we can start dreaming and playing. That is maybe the silver bullet. And my job as a CTO, if I have to describe it on one line, I would just say I have to invite people to play with NXP. We have 26,000 customers. I have no chance to oversee, and definitely not in detail, what these guys all are doing. But if I can invite them as a technical partner, a trustworthy partner, share with me your ideas and help me jointly playing with NXP and our capabilities. I mean, then after that, swarm intelligence kicks in, I hope.
Yeah, and fascinating. Let me jump into that with you in terms of maybe by industry, how life might change. Take the automobile industry. Everybody has a car today. They drive here and there and everywhere. We had a Stanford professor. I'm sure you're aware of this guy called Tony Seba from Stanford.
Yeah.
And he's been in to talk to us twice now, our management team. And he starts his lecture with, is in the 20s near the Flatiron Building in New York. And he asked, the first slide is in a sea and horse and buggies, pick out the one car. And then it's literally 12 to 18 months later, it's flipped. Pick out the horse and buggy in a sea of cars. That's how quickly transformation happened in the auto industry, from quote horsepower to four-wheel mechanics. He was telling us any company that has motor in their title, Ford Motor, General Motors, that thinks about combustible engine as their motor, will be gone as the chip costs come down and the access to that and the integration of that technology occurs. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly does open up the specter of some massive changes coming through EV and the technologies that you're producing. So if you take the listeners through, they have a car today. What's the car tomorrow look like, Lars? And what functionality does it have?
Well, maybe one little precursor to that.
Yes.
I think it does not help if we are always super extremist in our thinking. If you are a mega citizen, mega city citizen. You are thinking of finding a parking space for my car is a total drama. I don't want to have that. I want to have shared transportation. I want to press on my mobile phone, or the transportation picks me up ahead of time, and it moves me from A to B. I'm living here in the countryside. I have zero problem to parking 10 cars in front of my house. But I don't want to tolerate half an hour waiting time for any cab to show up in front of my driveway. So in other words, what I believe is we will see a vast mix of different types of transportation, and we should not be always super black and white in that. So will the combustion engine cars be extinct? No, but they might have certain value propositions for longer distance driving with maybe more efficient engines, maybe with a pretty different profile. Will we have ride sharing? Of course we will have in the certain areas. And what is the sweet spot for EVs? What is maybe just hydrogen driven cars via a hydrogen combustion engine or a fuel cell? I mean, yes, they will all be there, and we have to see how they fit into the ecosystem. Plus, on top of that, might our way or our attitude to transportation change? So maybe the two of us, we are meeting each other once a year to really network and to meet each other, things that are working poorly only via a digital screen. But these internal company flights and meetings that I go to Austin, or the Austin folks come here to Hamburg just for workshops, maybe that is not happening anymore in future, or to a much reduced level. So our life will change, our cars will change, and it will be hybrid and compromise models that are much more adjusted to what you, Dennis, and what I, Lars, really need. And then, of course, the key question is, what is my age? What is my personal mobility? So for me, I love driving on a German motorway, left lane, 250 kilometers an hour, visiting my parents, 500 kilometers of distance. For my dad, he's 83 now. For him, it is okay, mobility gets more limited. Driving for 5 hours gets a burden. And on a motorway or city driving, that's even getting dangerous. So my dad now would go for a smaller car, which with fantastic highway pilot systems. So you drive the 10 kilometers to your highway, press a button and say, take me to Hamburg. And when he is at the highway exit in Hamburg, the car tells him, hey, now you take over again and drive the 15 kilometers, 10 miles to Lars's house manually again. The 10 miles on each side, he can drive without an issue. The 400 kilometers in between, he doesn't want to drive. And these type of assistance systems, barrier removal, hassle removal for him, this is what will go away via our technology, because this is where his willingness to pay is. He is not willing to pay for a car without a steering wheel. Why should he? Yeah. But having these, keep your mobility up, having really interesting and super safe and simple assistance in your life, assist systems in cars, that is where I think the next 10 years are driving, if you're looking at the industry.
Interesting. You know, as I'm listening to you, Lars, I'm just reflecting on Siba's talk just for one more example. He thought that cities would be massively transformed, where car usage, he sees dropping significantly, individual car ownership. He said it's the most inefficient use of capital there is. And ride sharing industry will blossom. It's already emerged, but it'll really blossom. And young millennials, instead of owning a car and having it sit 98% of the time, they'd rather just call an Uber or call a fleet and take me from here to there. He theorized as a result that a lot of the cities that have a lot of real estate tied up in parking lots, for example, would no longer need that, because the fleet sharing would get people from here to there, and you wouldn't have a need to park your car because you're navigating via a fleet, which give rise to replanning cities. and giving rise to smart cities and smart utilities and smart electrics and all that. Can you talk about that a bit, or is that too far out there?
No, Dennis, that's well, that's an interesting thought, but even one thought further. Who needs megacities? The key question that I'm getting from some of the youngsters in my team is, Lars, tell me how dead is the megacity? And I was like, what do you mean? I said, look, Lars, I mean, at the moment, a lot of us are moving to the cities because we have to work here. Some of us, cliche yuppies, are here because you have the cool cafeterias, you have the cool theater, you have all of that. But very honestly, they said, we would prefer living in the countryside where we can make ends meet, where we have a spacious house, when we want to raise kids and when we want to start a family. And if we want to go to the city, Berlin, Hamburg, New York, or whatever, we can go. So we want to be close enough to the city that a 1 hour commute maybe takes us to the opera. Okay, nice. But who really needs to live in 50 square meters with 2 adults, 1 or 2 kids in a skyscraper? Yeah. No one. And you see this in the COVID pandemics now, that suddenly people try to get out of the cities when they are anyhow on a very different value proposition. So from that angle, yes, the cities, the value proposition of a city will change. And also the design of a city, of course, would change. So it will, look at cities like Copenhagen. They are advertising big time that they are so bicycle centric, the bicycle capital of the world. This is the slogans that they are rolling out. They have bicycle motorways, highways, no motor, but where you have multi-lane bicycle ways and so on. And it's just getting a new feeling of being a citizen in these cities. Now, if you have more of that type of transportation, more transportation to get to the opera and less to work, your rush hours might be differently, your space, parking space might be differently, and the better a public transportation gets, or an individual shared transportation gets, the more of these transportation barriers you're going to remove, and the easier it is for you to joyful it is to drive into the city. Yeah. So yes, that will happen. That will not happen as a couple of journalists are writing over a fortnight, and next year all parking spaces are gone and whatsoever. Of course not. But this will be how the cities are changing in the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I'm listening as you're talking. I'm smiling wryly as I remember before we went on air here, I was telling you about I had visited my city for my great grandparents had lived and married, and I tried to get to the church where they baptized their kids in Koblenz. Oh,
right.
Forget it.
Yeah.
The parking spot in Koblenz, and then you're walking, 2 or 3 kilometers to get into the city. So forget it. I'll just get it. I'll do it somewhere.
Oh, no, of course, Koblenz has the nice issue of the real estate being in the Mosel and the Rhine Valley, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of space to expand to the outside city areas. So you are stuck, and either you are using your space very efficiently, or good luck here.
Right. So on autos, on automobiles, that I can visualize the impact technology might have. How about other fields that you're working on? Again, I noted that chip technology is certainly moving into, and has been, but it's going to take a next leap in terms of medical imaging, for example. But so can you take us through the application of chip technology to everyday life beyond the automobile, Lars?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I'm talking about smart connected devices that we are building, and these smart connected devices are of course equipped with 4 wheels. That's the story that we always talked about. But these smart connected devices.
Well, I have to say, Lars, when I met with Kurt Sievers is Lars' boss. He's now the CEO of NXP. When I interviewed Kurt a few years ago, he said, "Don't think the cars will have 4 wheels in the future." He said they may look like refrigerators with 2, which I was kind of astounded by. But I guess there's another form function that might be emerging as well.
But no, absolutely. I mean, these lines are starting to blur by the purpose that the transportation vehicles get. But what I wanted to point to is you have the same design principles for all smart connected devices. You sense your environment. You think of a smart advice. If your own brain is too small, you have to ask someone who has the know-how. So connect to the cloud. This is what I mean. And you have to send a smart advice to the arms and legs of your robot. Sense, think, connect, act. Whether it's your intelligent thermostat at home or your self-driving car or your industrial robot. And then what you need to make sure is you as an end customer, you want to transfer responsibilities to this device. So trust your device is the mega slogan. Make sure that this device never ever fails and creates a damage, and make sure that this device never can be hacked and create a damage. By the way, also not a new trend. Your flattening iron for your shirts had to do the same. Yeah, if you don't trust that that this thing is not setting your house on fire, you will never buy it. So sense, think, connect, act, safety and security. If we are world champions for this, you can build almost every smart connected device. And that also holds for insulin pens, that holds for image detectors, for X-ray systems, that holds for hearing aids, that holds for drones. Yeah, we have a lot of students even working on drones now. We have the associations like the avionics associations of the different nations looking into our electronics, because we work with functional safety electronics. It's good for a pacemaker. The setup comes from the cars, of course, that your braking systems never fail, but of course it's equally important for your drones. And will that mean in the last consequence that the air is totally equipped with 10,000 drones over New York and over Hamburg? I doubt. But there might be bigger parcel delivering drones that are delivering in container to every skyscraper, where 1,000 letters are in or 10,000 letters are in, and you have 100 of those drones just offloading the goods transport in the cities, and then from there you dispatch it into your neighborhood. So these type of model changes in the society you will definitely see over the next 20 years. And yes, so you see already how much health functions your smartwatches can take. And well, of course, with that, you in principle could trigger, if you can trust the devices, you can trigger, of course, also devices like your pacemaker or your insulin pump, or adjust your hearing aids if they don't adjust themselves to a noisy or a silent environment. So that is all the stuff that that our semiconductors are bringing to the party there.
Yeah, in fact, my son's type 1 diabetic, Lars, and he's got a device called Dexcom 4, I think it's called, where he doesn't have to prick his finger. He just wears a sensor, and through his phone, he can adjust his blood sugar level, and he can anticipate, more importantly, what I eat is going to translate into this value of blood sugar. It calculates that naturally, normally. It's a great device. It has a failure rate of 1 out of 3, though, I noticed, because he always has 2 or 3 backups of the house. But the technology is emerging there, which makes health management so much easier.
Indeed, Dennis. And I mean, that is, so what you have there is, I mean, I could spin it further now. You have something that is under your skin. You don't want to have, of course, cables or batteries there, but what you want to have is you want to have what we have for the contact banking cards, this NFC, near field connections. You can do this also via these NFCs for energy transmission. So charging, like mobile phone charging, but with smaller antennas for smaller devices. You could use this wireless charging for all sorts of other devices. But in principle, what we can think of is in future having these sensing elements under our skin and just touching it from the outside world with the reading equipment, my mobile phone, my smartwatch, or whatsoever. And you get your medical data out. And with all of that, I mean, how much easier can life become for, stay with the example, a diabetes patient, or How much higher can I have the quality of living when my parents are still at home in the 90s? So where I cannot always watch what they are doing, but in case they leave the stove on or they fall or there is an incident, that I get immediately informed, that the house maybe reacts to them in a friendly way, and I don't have to give up my job and move back 500 kilometers to care for them 24/7, and they don't have to move to the elderly home, but can stay where they normally live. So this is the true quality when I say barrier removal. And this is, of course, what this tech-friendly world can do for us. We just need to make sure that this technology also cannot be abused. So we are writing papers, guidelines for AI ethics. NXP is writing guidelines how you should design your devices and what are the 10 commandments of AI ethics. And again, this is not because I'm a good corporate citizen, but without having them, one of the 4 stakeholder groups, customers, analysts, politicians, or society, would be afraid of me. And if they cannot trust me, then I will not make business. So that is a closed circle. If I'm here responsible, if I can explain what I'm doing, I will have a lot of success in the marketplace with the positive innovation.
Can I take that a bit further, Lars? Because I think what people don't understand, they naturally fear. I think that's a human condition. And there's a lot of, obviously a lot of concern as technology emerges. Just think about vaccines right now that I just did my first jab last week. I get my second one in 2 weeks. I'd love to get a little card that says I've been vaccinated, and then I'm flying. And that, the airline would say, hey, you've been vaccinated, cool, come on in. And therefore you don't have to quarantine when you arrive in a country. All that makes sense to me. On the other hand, people have a problem because it's an invasion of their privacy. How do you square the whole privacy thing with the application of technology? Because it doesn't need to be mutually exclusive. It ought to be integrative, but I know that's a barrier. I think about your 4 constituents group, politics is one of them, or political bodies, societies another. How do you mesh that together in terms of the application of your technology with those concerns?
Very honestly, I mean, I'm trying to I'm in that dialogue already, and of course from a techie side. So I'm not a medical doctor. I cannot talk about the likelihood or constraints of the vaccines that you're getting. But what I can clearly say is the passports that are out there. So all our biometric chips in passports, we very easily can carry that information in a separate chapter of that book. So like your nationality information, you're a US citizen, I'm a German. There is a separate section where I could say Dennis is vaccinated and Lars is not. Now, the right authorities can read that, and the right authorities, so the NHSs of this world, can write it. And so I was at my doctor, get my shot. The doctor with a secure app on his mobile phone can write my passport and say Lars has been vaccinated, and I can go travel. Now, would this be a discriminating factor or not? Well, I don't know, but today already when I travel, I have to show my passport, and I can easily travel to certain countries just because I'm German, and you are a US citizen. I have more difficulties in other countries just because I'm German. So there is a certain discrimination or non-discrimination via my passport. And just imagine I'm flying to the US. Well, then I either have a visum or I don't get in. Or my visum gets simpler. I call it ESTA. Or my ESTA gets simpler and I call it global entry. So even there, I have different levels of traveling convenience. What is there the difference compared to the other setup where they say, Lars, can you please show us your COVID test? And it has to be not older than 24 hours. Or can you show us your vaccination documents? Or can you give me your passport and I immediately can read that you are vaccinated and that you are protected? I mean, if you try to abstract this, and you hear me doing the storytelling again.
Yeah.
If I just take a step back, saying what is different in the visum part versus the vaccination document part, it is just a certification that I'm getting, and then I freely can move again. And what you see is the economic pressure is so high in a lot of countries in the meantime, that everyone says, give the people these passports and let at least the ones who can move freely again. Who cares about discrimination? I mean, that is, of course, now a discussion that the politicians, the society have to do. I can only say, technically, I can prepare you all the Lego blocks to build whatever system you would like. And I have done it for traveling, passports. You can use the same infrastructure and ecosystem and readers. No one needs to buy new devices or new passports. You can immediately roll it out. Yeah, that is my job as a techie.
Yeah, I love that, because that's in my little simple brain. That's what I thought as well, which is you've already got a chip in your card, in your passport. I've got British and American, so I use the US as I depart the US. When I get to Europe, I use the Brit. Yeah. And it's seamless and it works. Used most of the time. London can be a challenge because sometimes the card readers aren't that clear. But I thought it was just a matter of just slipping in additional data like vaccination date number 1, vaccination date number 2. And if people have a problem with that, then fine, don't travel. Or go
or you need paper forms, and you need your tests, or God knows what. I mean, it just gets more complicated. And then it's very honestly, I mean, we have mobile payment on all of these devices here, on the mobile phones and on the smartwatches. Again, it's the same chip that is in the passports. So if you like, you can carry that in a very convenient way. Your wallet, your vaccination documents, your passport, and via ultra wideband, your key ring, all stuffed into your piece of private electronics, and life gets completely barrier free. You want to unlock your front door, your car, ultra wideband in your smartphone. You want to pay, take your smartphone, your mobile payment. You need health information or visum information, call it as you like. Okay, you have it all on your private piece of electronics. That is how life in future will get much, much simpler. And the funny thing is, just to bring one thought to your brain, is I've taken now your keyring out of your pocket and have integrated it into the mobile phone via ultra wideband. So you approach your car, the car says, "Hi, Dennis," and the car only opens up when Dennis is close enough and touches the door handle. Now, I've not only taken your keyring and stuffed it into the mobile phone, but your mobile phone is a nice sensor hub that detects all the steps that you're making or how you are walking. With that, the mobile phone can detect your walking pattern. And your walking pattern is like your fingerprint. Mine is very different from yours. So in other words, in the past, I could invite you to a Hamburg pub, we drink a couple of beers, and I grab the key from you that you have on the desk in front of you, move out, take your car and drive away. If I would now take your mobile phone, start approaching your car, the car says, "Well, hi, Dennis, I guess it's you because your key is close to the car, but you know what, honestly, today you are walking very differently. Can you please authenticate yourself via face recognition or PIN number? Or if it is you and you're walking so strangely, can you please do an alcohol test, because either you're completely hammered and should not drive anyhow, or it's not you and you are cheating." So what I have done by integrating here is I have added another dimension of security on top without you even recognizing you as an end customer. And no one wants to get back to a metal piece that locks or unlocks a car that everyone can easily fake and rebuild. Your health data, as soon as you have it in that way, and if you can build it in such a secure way, it's much better than the paper folios that doctors store in the cellar somewhere. I mean, how secure is that compared to what you could create in these secure databases where just your name gets detached from the file, and only via a crypto operation you can link the two with each other. So if you do this in a clever way, look into the manual how to design privacy by design, or ethics by design, or safety by design, and this is what NXP is bringing forward. If you can do this, then the world becomes a much easier, a much better place.
Fascinating. Hey, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions if I could, before the hour closes on us. This is fascinating. What's the most interesting thing you've worked on in your career that when you look back and you go, God, that was a lot of fun and we made a huge impact and I'd love to do that again?
Very honestly, I mean, there's a mix of interesting topics. So that is always very much in the medical area. One of the things that really made me proud was working on telematics for vehicles. So this emergency call functionality. Just imagine you have a car accident and without you doing anything, the car automatically calls the ambulance and tells where the car is. So your airbags are deployed and the car calls the 911. And via the direct positioning tells the ambulance where to go. And if you are still able to talk, okay, hey, I'm Dennis, yeah, no, sorry, I just hit the SOS button by accident, fine. Or, hey, I'm stuck here in my car with 3 or 4 people, that's good. But other than that, this system is just transporting how many restraint systems are locked. Was it only the driver restraint system or 4 or 5 others in that car? What type of a car is it? 7-seater? Okay, then maybe send 2 ambulances. And in these type of systems, working there and having a true impact, visible impact of saving people's life. The other things is what we are doing just at the moment, this convergence of the different markets. They say, hey guys, this is huge impact if we just can make your access to anything easier, if we can move into a world that anticipates and automates. But that is, of course, equally exciting and it has a huge impact.
And Lars, I guess the last question for you, I could talk forever with you because you're always so super smart and working on things that are so cool. If I'm a young engineer and I'm listening to this, what should I take away from this talk relative to my profession, where I should maybe hope to take my career?
Well, the first learning is the things in my life that never worked were the things that I tried to plan. So don't over plan. Right. But that also does not mean that I'm totally on a random walk or on a chaotic move. For me, a key driver is doing something that impacts for society. And whether I'm building medical devices, my early dreams, or whether I'm now in these smart connected devices changing the world and trying to drive the same goal forward. Try to understand what makes you tick and try to work this into your daily life. I mean, there's this famous saying, do what you love, but even more important, love what you do. This is not an opportunity that comes to you, it's your attitude. You have to make this fun, what you're doing, regardless of whether you are producing marmalade buckets or smart speakers. I mean, that it's your attitude. And if you embrace this, it's an infinite source of energy. The other way around, it's just a burdening job.
Well, I would say you're an energy giver, my friend. Every time I'm around you, I get energized by what you're working on, how you come at it. You're just a fantastic leader, Lars. Really appreciate the time today.
Dennis, big thanks, and thanks for the fantastic talk.
Yeah, say hello to Kurt for me. I hope that someday I get to come through Hamburg again, see your new building. I bet you that's up out of the ground and all done, right?
Yes, absolutely. It looks fantastic, and yeah, I'll give your regards to Kurt. And then when you're in Hamburg, I mean, of course, you're invited to visit us there.
All right, very good.
Looking forward to that.
All right, thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks. Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.